Hello, welcome to another episode of Phil the Screams podcast. Today we'll be talking about The Substance. This movie starts off with a character named Elizabeth, played by Demi Moore. She's a lead actress in an aerobics type show where they're doing stretches, a lot of positivity going along with exercises. It reminds me of like back in the 80s, just aerobic training video. But at this point in Elizabeth's career, I don't even want to call her old because she still doesn't look that bad. But she goes into a room and her boss, played by Dennis Quaid, who, by the way, in this movie, could definitely play Vince McMahon if they ever make a biopicture movie of him, which, with the stuff going on with him, who knows if that'll ever happen. But Dennis Quaid did a great job of being completely disgusting. There's one scene where they do a complete close-up of him eating and it looks like a 4-year-old child. It's just left a mess all over the table. There's sauce all over his face. And the man really doesn't care what he says. Elizabeth overhears him in a conversation over the phone talking about how she's way too old. We need to get someone new in there, someone younger. We need to get her out. And this is the beginning of the movie where it shows Elizabeth being very self-conscious, being very aware that she is getting older. And yeah, it's kind of tough to watch at first because, it's something we're all going to hit at some point. And while this movie does have the message of loving yourself no matter, how imperfect you feel, be appreciative of everything that you have, it also takes some stabs at the kind of shallowness in Hollywood. And it's aimed at women a lot, and sometimes even males. Every guy role these days, it seems like you have to be ripped and shredded just to play a young hero's boyfriend. It's just the way Hollywood goes. This movie's just a very angry message towards that. So while she's down in the dumps, she tops things off by getting into a car crash, which she has to go to the doctor. And while she's getting checked up on, there's like a student of a doctor or a study. And this young boy, he kind of creeps behind her and he's very weird about it. He's like feeling her spine and he's like, oh yeah, that's a good spine. And she's just like, oh, okay, thanks. And then he's like, I know a program, it changed my life forever. And he gives her a little USB drive and, she goes home and she checks out what this program is. Now, when she checks out this program, this program is as vague as can be. It throws 100 different words at you. It's like split, respect the balance, reset every day. And it's like giving her like these instructions and it's going 1,000 miles per hour. And while I'm watching it, I'm like, I didn't catch any of that. And there's like tubes and syringes in this kit. And I'm just like, how is she even supposed to know what to do? But luckily for us, even though she threw it away at first, she has enough guilt. She's like, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to try to reverse aging. I'm going to try to look younger. Now, it's once she tries this process that things get a little bit, I don't want to call it gory, but this movie is not afraid to show anything. There's a lot of nudity in the movie. A lot of people describe this movie as Cronenberg. Like a lot of blood and just gross body horror, which there is. But I wouldn't necessarily call it scary. It's just kind of like, and some of it's fascinating. Some of it is gross. And it's a fun movie because of it. So when Elizabeth tries the substance, she splits into two different people. There's Elizabeth, who's the aged star, who doesn't feel very great about herself. Then there's a younger version played by Margaret Qualley, and she calls herself Sue. And I guess they use the name Sue because when you say it, your lips kind of go together as if you're making a kissing motion. Once we see this split happen, the atmosphere and mood of these two characters, Elizabeth, things are still depressing. She's still not happy with herself. There's a character, he's very nerdy and his name is Fred. When you first meet him, he's almost just so nerdy. You might think he's up to something. He's like, oh, Elizabeth, we were in the same class. Oh my gosh, you're perfect. Everything you've done no wrong. And he's basically worshiping the ground that she's walking on. And he's like, please, can we grab dinner sometime? And she's like, well, maybe if you write your number down on a piece of paper, I can get a hold of you. So like he takes this piece of paper that has his cholesterol levels on it, writes down his phone number, drops it into a puddle of mud, and still gives it to her. And she just reluctantly takes it. And it's almost kind of a sad moment because like you feel for Fred. You're like, oh, I'll give that dude a chance. He's probably a nice dude. But at the same time, like he probably would be a bit much. So I could kind of get why Elizabeth was a bit hesitant. But as Elizabeth's going about her everyday life, there's a call out for her old job. They want someone to replace her, someone 18 to 30 years old. And luckily Sue, she fits those qualifications. So whenever she switches to Sue, that's exactly what she's working for. And again, the atmosphere and mood, like when it's Elizabeth, it's like solemn and quiet and almost depressing. And then when it's Sue's turn, it's like, like like the beats are going, like everything's happy-go-lucky. She's going at it. Just two very different vibes completely. Sue ends up getting the role, and she meets Elizabeth's old boss. And Elizabeth's old boss, he completely loves her. She even says, like, well, I can only film 1 week and then I have to take a week off to take care of my mom, which the relationship between Elizabeth and Sue is kind of like daughter and mom in a way. We'll get into that in a little bit. But when she takes over the show, like, again, like the vibes of the two different, when Elizabeth was doing it, she's actually doing like stretches and she's dressed, she's covered, I will say, compared to Sue, who kind of wears a revealing outfit, like her butt's hanging out. She's not doing really stretches. She's basically just twerking. And while she's twerking, she's like, pump it up. Let's go. Pump it up. And like just twerking away. Two very different types of TV shows, it feels like. I guess this is the modern day reboot. Now, things go about as well as they can. I mean, both of these ladies are switching back and forth. They are the same person technically. I mean, if you've seen it, you've seen it. Like, I don't want to go through every rule in detail because it is quite the process. But, basically Sue has to take the spinal fluid and inject herself once a day to keep herself fresh and going. And if that doesn't happen, bad things happen. But eventually things do go bad to where Sue starts getting greedy. She runs into a boy, they start making out. She's like, oh, I need one more day. I need 8 days instead of 7. So she takes a little bit extra spinal fluid. Whenever that happens, Elizabeth wakes up and one of her fingers, it looks like a zombie witch finger. It looks disgusting. Now, with all this said, I talk about how solemn Elizabeth's life is. And again, like, she's not a bad looking lady at all. Like, it's really all in her head. And there's even like one night once she gets that bad finger, she hits up Fred and she's like, hey, we should go get dinner. And he's like completely enthusiastic. He's like, absolutely. He's like saying the place. She's like, I'll meet you there. And then when she gets in front of the mirror, like, you can just tell she's self-conscious. She feels like she's no longer the person. So then, like, she, like, freaks out, starts rubbing the makeup off, and she doesn't text Fred at all, and you feel bad for Fred, because Fred's, like, sending her messages, like, where are you? And there's one that made me laugh. He goes, I know a big star like yourself likes to make a big entrance. And it's like, oh, poor Fred. You're getting ghosted, man. Now, obviously, Elizabeth is getting a little ticked off at Sue for overstaying her welcome, so she calls the little hotline number, the guy who gave her the substance in the first place. And this guy's an excellent customer service person. Literally, he's just like, yeah, what's up? Well, first you have to say what patient you are, experiment number. So she tells him, and then she's like, yeah, she's overstaying her welcome. And he goes, whoa, 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 there is no she. She is you, you are her, you are one. There is a balance, respect it. And then he'll like hang up. And he just kind of like leaves them like, yeah, you guys need to figure this stuff out. But it doesn't get any better. Sue continues to get greedy. She wants to overstay her welcome. She's got to do big events like host the New Year's Eve celebration party or something like that, like the biggest event on TV. So, she's just staying past her time. And eventually, like, it gets really bad to where Elizabeth, like, half her body is, like, zombified. One of her legs doesn't bend all the way. It's very disgusting. And Elizabeth is like, well, I'm going to cancel. And she's like, calls the dude, and he's like, yes. And she tells him again, like, I don't think I can take it. And he's like, well, you could always cancel. You could terminate Sue. And Elizabeth like pauses for a second, and she's like, no, I can't do that. I can't be stuck with just me. Which if she would have done that, things would have been somewhat all right. But, this is a horror movie. Things are going to get worse. Now, I'll admit, there's a part where I kind of got confused. Is about at this point in the movie, after Sue overstays her welcome a second time, her and Sue, they're at each other's throats. Elizabeth starts becoming like a chef, basically, making every food under the moon, making a gigantic mess for Sue to clean up every time she comes back. Both of them are ticked off at each other. And my initial understanding of this movie was whenever she created Sue, the younger version, whenever Sue was up and alive, I thought Elizabeth was experiencing her moments like in her point of view. So like technically Elizabeth was controlling Sue because they are one, as the guy said. And I thought whenever she goes back to Elizabeth, like also Sue would like live through her eyes and her body. So I thought they would be able to coexist pretty easily. Now, granted, something's got to go wrong, but at this point of the movie, they completely hate each other. And Sue gets so fed up, she's like, I'm just going to make Elizabeth like stay in this little room. Like she creates this like little dungeon room in the bathroom, and just throws Elizabeth's body in there and just fills up vials and vials of spinal fluid. And like as she's doing it, you're like, my God, like she is ruining Elizabeth. And in my head, I'm just like, so does Elizabeth's like soul travel into Sue's body and also makes those decisions and just can't control herself? Or, like do they have like the same soul? And like as the movie went, I got the gist that it was not the case, to where they became two different people completely, even though Sue had the memories of Elizabeth when she started. So that's what I mean by in a way they are kind of like mother and daughter, because Elizabeth is like the mother who's lived her life, passed on the genes and the memory and the knowledge onto Sue, and now Sue's living her own life, and Sue doesn't really care what happens to Elizabeth. Like she just cares about her time now. This is her time to rule, which is a very, in a way, it speaks on society, on how we treat elder people. I would say, like a lot of times people just throw them into nursing homes, and they don't see them too often. I think this is kind of some metaphors towards that. So there's metaphors all over this movie, which is a great thing. But yeah, once Sue commits and is like, yeah, I'm staying in my body, pump it up, oops, 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 doing all that, Elizabeth comes back and she looks like Smeagol, completely hideous. And by this point, like, Elizabeth is ready to cancel Sue. So she gets the kit for termination. She goes to stab Sue's body. With the injection, she does. But then, like, she's like, no, what am I doing? And then, like, did like brought her back. But when she brought her back, both of them are alive at the same time. And they're kind of looking at each other like, how did this happen? But then they, like, waste no time because Sue realizes that she was almost canceled or terminated. So then they start like duking it out and fighting. And by duking it out fighting, like Sue starts kicking Elizabeth's butt, like slamming her head through glass, like throwing her around the room. And again, it's probably a metaphor of beating yourself up, in a way. But yeah, it happens. And then Sue kills Elizabeth. Now with this happening, because Sue's not thinking very clearly, by the time it's the New Year's Eve celebration, she needs more spinal fluid, and she's like, how can I do this? And she decides to try to use the substance again, which you're only supposed to do one time. Once she does the substance again, it creates a brand new person. And when I say person, I'm using that very lightly. It creates, and it literally gets a title card, Monster Elizasu, which is just absolutely hilarious all on its own. And so Monster Elizasu decides to go to the New Year's Eve celebration to host it. And We got Dennis Quaid there. He's like, "Oh, I can't wait till you see her. Like I crafted her. Like she's everything you've ever dreamed of." And there's like pretty women all across the stage, and then Monster Elizasu, who's very aware that she is kind of ugly. Like there's a little montage of her or it trying to doll itself up, like curling its one hair on its head. Like this thing is abomination. It really is. But it takes a picture of like older Elizabeth and tapes it across its face, and it goes upon the stage, and everyone's like, "What in the world?" And it's like it tries to like pull off the host gig. It's like, "Hello, everybody, welcome to," and like tries to give a speech, and the people start freaking out because it Monster Elizasu like pukes up a boob, or something like that. People are like, "Monster, monster," and Monster Elizasu's like, "No, it's me, it's me." But they start attacking her, and then they end up chopping off Monster Elizasu's head. And when they do that, like it like regenerates a bit, but then just starts spraying blood all over everyone, and it's playing like rock and it's not even rock and roll. It's like straight metal music while blood's just going all over everyone. There is a hall throughout this movie that looks very much like the Shining hallway, and Monster Elizasu goes down the Shining hallway blasting blood throughout the entire hall. Just like a nice little callback to the Shining. Part of the abomination of a Monster Elizasu, it had Elizabeth's face on its back, and like the face looked like a sleepaway camp. The young girl's face when the big reveal happens, it's like, that's exactly how Elizabeth's face looked on Monster Elizasu's back. And after it gets like completely obliterated, that one little aspect of Elizabeth, like it like slithers. In the very beginning of the movie, it shows Elizabeth Starr, Hollywood star. And it shows like just the seasons going. Like first it's being celebrated, and then people walking all over it. Soon people are dropping tacos on it, and the movie ends with Elizabeth's face kind of just slithering over the star, looking up at the sky and just kind of taking in the moment. And for the first time in this movie, Elizabeth is taking in the moment, which, like the big overall message is just like appreciate what you have because it's never as bad as what you think. Like Elizabeth, she thought it was awful. She thought it was horrible, that she was ugly. And then she ended up becoming Smeagol. Sue had it pretty great, and then she killed her host and had to make Monster Elizasu. I don't think Monster Elizasu ever doubted her abilities, though. Monster Elizasu was always very confident. Kudos to it. But yeah, overall, like this movie's a pretty crazy time. It's fun. You don't know where it's going. Even when like scary stuff isn't happening, it's still fun. The dynamic between Elizabeth and Sue. Again, I was a little confused on just how Elizabeth experienced what Sue was experiencing, because she like definitely did not want to terminate Sue. Again, they felt like mother-daughter, not really as one person, even though they technically were one person with the substance. But the way Sue abused Elizabeth, I was like, why would she do that? Like, she needs her. Just do your 7 days, but that's the moral of the story, though. You're harmful. You don't respect your elders. I sound old now. But yeah, like just good stuff all around. Attacking the body image stuff. I liked the movie a lot. I thought it was crazy. I thought it was fun. Sometimes I'll joke around the household and just go, pump it up, and like, oomph, 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 oomph. Like, I don't know, that just cracked me up how that was supposed to be an exercise show. We all know what that show was for. That show was to attract the guy viewers. We all know it. It's not a real exercise show. Let's be realistic here. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the movie a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's gory, a lot of nudity. But yeah, it has good messaging, and it's kind of like that deeper type movie. Some might call it elevated, but it's still fun too. You can still kind of turn off your brain and just enjoy the show. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, even though I spoiled a lot of it in this episode, I really think you should go see it. It's a pretty good film. But if you didn't like it, tell me why in the comments. If you did like it, tell me why in the comments also. If you haven't done so already, give this video a like because it helps out the channel. I mean, if you haven't subscribed, do it. Do it. Pump it up. Oops, 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 oops. But on a real note, again, very good movie. And if you're still listening, I greatly appreciate you listening to this episode of the podcast. Until next time, guys.